issue of unemployment is one of the fundamental effects that is affecting our country, Nigeria, today. Maybe in the morning you can say, okay, I have somewhere to go. Instead of you to think negatively, you think positively. The government need to do something about it. People are crying. You see 419 is everywhere. Armed robbers are going everywhere. When you discover they are graduate. People who their parents have suffered a lot to pay for their school fees. But when they come into the labor market, now you begin to look at government has not created the enabling environment. And I believe that government doesn't have the capacity to provide for everybody, but create the enabling environment. What do I mean by enabling environment? Whereby we're talking about where government can put policy, create industry, negotiate with private sector to create industry everywhere. By so doing, you begin to see like that is the level of unemployment is drastically reducing.
The rate of unemployment is increasing, but there is no President Buhari alone can do that. Nigeria, all Nigerian hands must be on deck once. One man alone cannot do it. So let's all of us as Nigerians, let's join hands together and work for our country and be proud of our country.
The labor market, the private sector economy is going down. A lot of companies are folding. A lot of people are losing their jobs. Banks are folding up. So, and there's a lot of job losses in the labor market, which the government itself has also contributed as going by their promises that they're going to create more jobs. I believe they have contributed in job losses.
Okay, welcome back. If you're just joining us, it's still the morning line with Nancy, and we are in the agenda segment of the program. Today we will be looking at issues surrounding the youth unemployment, the empowerment programs, and all of those issues concerning the youth. 2 years on since the administration of President Muhammadu Buhari started, let's try and find out what is happening with the youths in the country. Joining us this morning is Chambers Umezulike. He's a development expert and program manager at Follow the Money. You're welcome to the program.
Yeah, thank you so much.
And also joining us is MacDonald Ahiromi, sitting on my right, towards my right. MacDonald is a lawyer and advocate for good governance. MacDonald, welcome to the program.
Thank you very much.
Okay, let me start with you. 2 years down the line, current administration, let's look at the efforts at youth empowerment, reducing unemployment. What is the situation practically?
Well, to my mind, as a matter of inexorable logic, it's clear that the things happening in the country are so glaring for everyone to see. I think the best scorecard for this administration is on the streets, not necessarily in the finesse of a studio, within the walls of a studio. Nevertheless, I don't want to sound like a judge or jury to begin to give pass mark or not to the credence of this administration. The youth is the driving force of every economy. I think for Nigeria, it's about 70% of the entire population. Now the question is, what is really in place to help this teeming population of young people? I worry about the explosion in terms of what could happen if nothing is done to curtail the excesses and the anomalies happening within the youth-centric and the youth sector. Now this administration, first I was so sad when I saw the merging of the youth ministry with sports. For me, that was a way of trying to commonize the strength of the youth sector. Nevertheless, I think what should be done, or what concerns young people more, is how best to embrace education technology and innovative practices that would put them at par with I mean, the white generation in other parts of the world, because the truth be told, we are living at the same time as other our contemporaries in other parts of the world are living, and we cannot use our country as an excuse to hide away from the challenges that are imminent at the moment. I think the government must try in their resolve to have young people have access to technology at the most affordable rates, so that access to information can also build confidence and also build knowledge base that is needed to challenge and then to meet the current challenges and changing trends in our country.
Okay, let me move to you. He's raised the issue about merging Ministry of Youth and Sports. Would it have been that the government probably thought that doing that merger would have helped probably too, because when you talk about youth and sports, youths are the ones who do sports. Would we say that it's actually a situation of probably the ministry not doing enough, or the fact that merger was a mistake?
Well, I think merging the two ministries, was actually an effort to downplay each of them. Look at the sports sector. Look at the EU, man. Look at Champions League. Look at Premier League. Look at the amount of money that sector alone can be able to sustain a lot of European economies, to be very, very sincere with you. Look at the athletics area. Look at so many. So even the sports sector already can be able to, a country can be able to earn a lot of foreign revenues in that sense. Then look at the youth ministry. It's probably downplaying, the very essence of that particular ministry, and also the very essence of having, planning for young people. Do we have a master plan for young people in the country? It just lip service, and it doesn't make sense. It's no longer sustainable. Like he mentioned, 70% of the population is made up of the youth. So if you are merging the two ministries, that means you don't want to dedicate some kind of strategic, emphasis on the issues of the youth, providing jobs for them, empowering them, educating them so that they can be able to innovate, start businesses, so that they can be able to get jobs. Look at the issue of demographic dividend. Just from his analysis too, in 2050, we're going to be over 400 million, and Nigeria is going to have a large working age population. At that time, are we putting proper, strategies in place to make sure that we maximize this? Africa is supposed to make $500 billion. Realize that. Africa is supposed to realize that if we can be able to empower, educate, and provide employment to the youth population, are there strategies on ground for the country to realize that? Because we have a very, very great share in that. And look at the other side of it, the consequences that if you don't educate, empower, and provide jobs for young people. Look at what Boko Haram is maximizing in the northeastern part of the country. Look at Niger Delta militancy. Crime rate is so high now. Kidnapping, people are being kidnapped on a daily basis. So you look at the consequences, and you also look at the fact that by merging the two ministries, that means the government is not placing so much emphasis on the youth, planning well for them, knowing so well that if you can give them jobs, if it can be able to even boost national productivity. So they're not looking at that, and it doesn't make a single sense. Then in terms of assessing the government based on when they came to power, they promised 3 million jobs per year. Some of the strategies to achieve that is the Npower. What of the Npower? The Npower is not really working, to be very, very sincere with you. The first time they talked about Npower, I was like, where is the database? How can you differentiate between employed and unemployed Nigerians? Currently, so many Nigerians that are employed are also being paid through the Npower scheme. Most of them are not doing any single thing under the scheme. We have people that were, where they were posted to are very, very far from their places of residence. And what are they doing? They were able to liaise with those institutions and maybe the sharing formula and all that. So they're not even going to work. They promised 500,000. They're doing 200,000 now. In short, the Npower, I can call the Npower just a pedestrian postgraduate scheme, that is not even sustainable. It's not sustainable. Now, an average Nigerian youth will graduate from the university, do NYSC, do Shopee, do Npower. Does it make sense? So that means within this particular chain, even in the university, I was taught some entrepreneurship, courses, the same during NYSC. So within these whole schemes, you don't think that they can already be able to start businesses and all that. So it doesn't make, a single sense to me. Under the Npower, they want to have teaching assistants, medical assistants, and most of all that. Is it that I have friends that are medical doctors that can't even get a place of housemanship. So you have people that are properly trained in that. You are not making sure that the channel is already there for them to get employed and contribute to the economy. You are teaching, you are recruiting some set of medical assistants, paying them 30,000 per month, contributing so much to our recurrent list that is already overburdening the economy. You have Nigerians that school abroad that when they come back, they stay for 5 years with nothing to do. They got specialized training, quality training abroad, and you don't have mechanisms to put them into sectors already. You have people that graduated from colleges of education too. They can teach, but we are not providing direct jobs for them.
So
but
the issue of policy and plans is what we should be looking at, because probably looking at the figure and all of this, we should have adequate policies. Now let's maybe we should take up the issue of policies for youths.
Well, policy direction, let me say something. Probably because my formal training is law, I tend to see law as a tool for social engineering. And also beyond that, I've come to also realize that policies or laws sometimes, let me just say laws anyway, they're like cobwebs. Sometimes they're so weak to hold the strong, yet they're so strong to hold the weak. And we begin to see where it goes beyond just making policies or coming up with fantastic frameworks. What can we do to begin to implement these issues? Nigeria, as a system, as a country, has a lot of very excellent and fantastic, templates. But the workabilities of these templates is where we have a problem. And I should use the word the political will, because no matter how well you have a lot of public advocacy coming from, advocacy groups cut across the civil society template, you would see that you cannot take the government out of the entire picture, because the government must, they must be seen to consistently do something to make the platform very, formidable for people to be able to participate and get I call it the benefits of good governance. Politics to me, I'm just digressing a little bit, but I just want to say this for emphasis. Politics to me must always be seen as a gameplay that ends with good governance. So the end product of every political activism must be good governance. And that's where I frown at the caliber of leadership we tend to see at all levels in our country, because it's one thing to want to be elected or appointed in a particular position, and it's another thing to want to use that position to better the lot of the vast majority of persons that you represent. So I worry about these policy frameworks. Some of them are in place. We have the African Youth Charter rather, that I don't even know if it has ever been implemented. There was a time I worked closely with the Youth Council of this country, and I saw how painful it was to be fighting in terms of, quote and unquote, with the strongholds of the country in terms of what should get to the young people, how the young people should act. And we thought of so many fantastic initiatives, like having a Youth Chamber of Commerce or having a Youth Microfinance Bank to help young people be able to access certain things that are very fantastic and, fundamental to their growth and development. So I think there are policy that, like I was discussing with him at the backstage, where we talked about the fact that how can this, institutions are supposed to be built. We are building strong men in our country, not necessarily strong people. And he said to me, and I quote, "These are the strong men ought ordinarily to build the strong institutions." And for me, it's fantastic. If these people who have found themselves at the helm of political power can begin to see the need to assiduously work towards the proper implementation of these policies, I think there is hope for the young people. But aside that, I wonder, I panic, I stutter, and I just hope for the best for the young people.
Okay, let me come to you now. He just mentioned about the agitation for a youth chamber of commerce or something like a youth microfinance bank. But we have institutions like the BOI, the Bank of Industry, the Bank of Agriculture, SMIDAN, ITF, and so many of them. Is it that the youths are not feeling the impact of this institution that we need to clamor for more?
First of all, I think you should look at why we have a high youth unemployment rate. It's currently at around 40%. You look at the issue of population explosion, high population growth rate. How can population be exploding while it's not commensurate with economic development? So you have a large youth population that no matter what you're planning, no matter what you're doing, you cannot be able to immediately, penetrate them. There's the Bank of Industry. Yeah, I think there's a YES program under the Ministry of Trade and Investment. Also, they revised You Win laying emphasis on, SMEs and all that, but it can never be sufficient because they don't even have the resources to fund all this. How much are these young people being given when they graduate from most of all these, trainings and schemes, when they submit their business proposals? Even the conducive environment to practice business is not in the country, from the power sector to infrastructure. So you look at all these constraints to business. I think more of the emphasis should be on attracting foreign investment. That was what East Asia did. Singapore reduced unemployment rate from 13% to 1.7% within 3 decades. Youth unemployment rate in China is currently at 10%, Indonesia 7%, Brazil 15%. These are countries that that have very large population sizes. How were they able to do that? Foreign investment, the manufacturing sector, we have a weak manufacturing sector, is when you were able to attract a lot of foreign capital, that you can be able to create a lot of jobs, that there will be transfer of technology, and also building the skills of the young people to be competitive, to be employable. We have a system whereby people pass through 4 years in the universities, and when they're out, they don't have any capacity. They can't innovate. They can't even start a business. Look at Germany. They have remarkable vocational training institutes. Every single thing is towards building capacity so that people can create businesses, so that entrepreneurship can thrive. Under the Npower, they have a plan to train 100,000 software developers. My question is, who is training these people? Do they have proper monitoring and evaluation regimes to make sure that when these guys are done and they're being given capital, they can be able to start up sustainable businesses? How much are they going to give them when they're done? But I have a fundamental problem with all these schemes. They're not sustainable. They're adding to our recurrent list. How many schemes did the United States start? How many schemes did they establish before Zuckerberg could emerge? The Google guys, the Wikipedia guys, they were no schemes. It's just a favorable environment for people to innovate. And look at what is happening in the US. So emphasis is not even in innovation. Bet me, in the 80s and 70s, China, Singapore, they were sending students to go and study the sciences in the US. And once they come back, you start seeing changes everywhere. Nigerians are funding themselves to study abroad. They come back, the government doesn't have any plans to absorb them.
Absolutely.
You want to add to
Yes, very true. I like that analysis. And, adding to that, the fact that the more we continue to see that young people are seemingly left at the corners, not necessarily being, absorbed in opportunities. Where, the few ones that are available, you still have these old people still there anyway, not necessarily wanting to give space to the young people to come in. It's worrisome, it's troubling. I wonder what the future of the young people would be in this country. I think we're living in times that are seemingly the result of the past neglect and accumulated errors of these old persons. So I would emphasize on your fantastic statistics, especially in respect to what we can do with an enabling environment that allows young people to see the need and priority to work on what they have. Now, education must go beyond what I love to call education proficiency concern to innovative practices that allows you to back skills. And skills, and I call it civilization. Someone said you don't have to be educated to be civilized. I like that. It's true, because sometimes civilization may just mean what you need to know to solve the problems of your time. Africanizing or Nigerianizing our problems is what we need to do, not necessarily importing hook, line, and sinker what works in the developed world, because sometimes you can Nigerianize those contents. So young people we're more challenged, and we have to, have more strength of spirit to hold on, to be more positive in our thoughts and direct our energies, not necessarily to social media frantic insults and abusive, content, but to use that energy to begin to network amongst ourselves. I believe, and I'll probably end with this, I believe that what took one man 20 years can actually take 20 persons 1 year. I believe in the power of fantastic networking.
That was part of what we were introducing. We're actually talking about the issue of networking and how, youth in the country can actually bring themselves together to make, something out of nothing, especially looking at the fact that we're approaching a weekend. It's this week, Saturday, Sunday. Now, what would also be, call it, in form of some of the advice that you could say you want to give to youths on areas that they can probably use in helping themselves? Because now that the situation is like this, they probably need to look at helping themselves, because we raised issues about little things like ushering, because when you bring yourselves together, 20, going to events, organizing events, they pay you for it. You go out and look at issues of delivery, things from doorsteps to doorsteps. What do you need? I can help you.
Yeah,
Not
I
always
would say
waiting
that.
for the government or waiting
Now,
on the government.
let me feel a little relaxed. Now, I was trained as a lawyer.
Yeah.
Behind the legal suit that I put on at periodic intervals, there is a farmer.
In you.
Behind that suit, there is a video cameraman.
Okay, so I hope
Behind that suit,
people are
there
listening.
is
I hope
a
they're
very
listening now.
spontaneous MC.
Okay.
Now, behind that, I learned to allow, not to allow my professionalism to affect my personality. We must begin to see beyond paper proficiency. Look deep. I call these things the innate gift of the Almighty that resides in everyone. Bring out what is in you. It may be in developing new skills, learning new trades, and do not take for granted your gifts, because you may just want to feel comfortable with that so-called white-collar job. Well, what you may just need is a platform to express yourself. And the more you do that, the more you build capacity to become strong in spirit and then access probably the opportunities you have around you via technology. And I'll continue to tell young people, let's continue to be connected. The world is going from, we used to have, we still have 774 local governments in the country. We, prior to now, generations before us, were cut across, they were kind of sidelined by ethnic and religious, lines. But we are in a time where we do not need such divisions. We must be together as young people. The only constituency I know in the country is a youth constituency. It's because we're young, and we must see ourselves as connected to make things happen as young people. That's the only way we can begin to appreciate our differences and use it as a fundamental force to be able to propel ourselves collectively for the Nigeria we desire.
All right, now Chambers, McDonald has led us into some of his some of the things that he does beyond when he's a farmer. He's also an MC, and I'm sure those things are paying.
I rest my case.
Let me also ask you, what are some of the things that you can also give out in form of like an advice on how youth can make the best of themselves, probably due to the current situations that they found, following from what he has said?
I have a quite divergent view. Nigerians are doing so much themselves already. We provide our own electricity, our own water. We, every single thing we do it ourselves. Is the way Nigeria is running is as if the Nigerian government, doesn't function for maybe like 10 days, nobody will even feel it. So I think Nigerians are doing much already. I'm in the civil society, we use our ifollowthemoney.org platform to mobilize young people to track governmental expenditure in rural communities. It's working, we're achieving results. But at the same time, just like I was telling him while we were discussing earlier, there is a fundamental role of the government in every society.
Very true.
I was giving him that statistics that in China, between 2011 and 2013, the cement they used in China, was higher than the cement the United States used in the 20th century. See the massive construction that the government was into. Look at the kind of jobs, that would have created and all that. There is a fundamental responsibility of the government to create an enabling environment for foreign capital, for the private sector to thrive, for a lot of things to happen. When the government is not doing that, you have so much little young people can be able to do. I'm telling you the gospel truth. So I think everything still somehow falls back to the government. The enabling environment, the enabling policies. We have markets, so we can attract foreign investors. We have raw materials. We have some of all these traditional incentives. Why are we not attracting them? Why countries like Singapore that doesn't have they don't have sufficient land size, they don't have raw materials, they don't have population for market. They have 7,000 multinational corporations. Just imagine the number of jobs they could be able to create, because they were able to create a favorable environment, lower taxes, they were able to provide a skilled labor force. The Prime Minister of Singapore used to go to the United States and begging the business community to come to Singapore and invest. Can you just imagine that? So the political will from the political leadership, from the political elites to develop Nigeria and provide jobs, to me, is the most important thing. No matter what young people can be doing individually on their own to be able to make income, which is very, very okay, but the government has an elemental role to play in that.
Okay, now following up on that, we probably now need to advise government, because when we talk about what you've spoken about, the Npower, the fact that they are looking at 500 now, they've done 200. Now let's look at some of these areas that you think government can focus on, whereby it will be a win-win solution kind of thing. I'm looking at agriculture value chains, because what we have now is raw materials, out they go. So maybe we should look at advising and what areas you feel that government can probably channel their energy to that would be win-win situation?
The fundamental problem is just oil dependence. I think oil spoiled us. So the political leadership, they don't have any pressure.
Okay,
There's nothing pushing them to innovate.
Moving beyond that now.
Looking at agriculture, for
Yes.
instance, the problem is the subsistence nature of it. It should be commercialized. They should be, like you mentioned, the value chain from the farms, those produces. How are they going to be raw materials to be able to kick off the industrial sector, the manufacturing sector? How can you embed young people into that? We've never been able to do that exactly. So, because what they do when we're in recession is, this fire brigade approach. Oh, agriculture, we used to do well in granite. We used to do well in this. They start running around. What are we going to do? But in terms of a master plan to make sure that young people will be infused into that particular, sector, they've not been able to do it and make it attractive to young people. I also think birth control is very, very key. I'm telling you the gospel truth. If Nigeria doesn't control population, the disaster will be is going to be very, very disastrous. We're going to be 400 million people in 2050, and 70% of this is made up of young people, and you don't have sufficient jobs for them. Half of them are unemployed. How can you be able to run a system, very well like that?
Totally agree with
You
that.
just mentioned, do you think birth control policy can actually work in this country?
It is as sensitive as it sounds. It is a fundamental an area which we must not take for granted. I mean, Africans, there was this research some time ago that was undertaken, and some persons actually said that Africans, quote unquote Nigerians, were persons who like pleasure and just fun, and that's how we pass out time. And that's a wrong notion, because probably if we were more engaged, then I think we would be more responsive enough to know that you shouldn't have more. Well, what's the need of having 5, 6, 7, 8, 9? There should be control in that area for the next generation of young people who would believe that they were planned for by the family unit, not necessarily ruling out children because of your masculine finesse. I mean, it makes no sense. There should be, but how do you push that across?
Someone once told me that the people that are even supposed to push that are the ones that have 5 wives, that they have
not like China, because I'm sure China is one of those suffering the issue of birth control right now. You
can see how they've
okay, earlier on when you were addressing some issues, you mentioned the issue of education. We have heard employers saying Nigerian youths are not employable. Do we need like a restructuring of our educational sector? Because I know now we have entrepreneurial and skill acquisition in the curriculum of universities, but do we still need to restructure the education sector quickly?
Absolutely. I would say that in few words. Absolutely. It's staring us at the face. What we have in, the curricular content, for me, does not necessarily meet the current challenging and changing trends. It's not innovative enough to encompass the solutions to the problems we have. I talked about Nigerianizing our problems. We don't always have to borrow everything hook, line, and sinker from the developed world. We should have models that could work for us. And I believe that, I don't want to go into democratic concern. I think I've always been suspicious about democracy, because it doesn't help to build nations. It only sustains what has already been built. So if there's a political will to be sure that a lot of research goes into the area of education, I want it to be more interesting. See how the number of failures we've been having in common exams like WAEC, NECO, and JAM from the Nigerian sector. That tells you, first of all, young people find education very uninteresting, and then they also see that it doesn't really lead them to fundamental places, because it's just as though they just bag what I call paper proficiency, and there's nothing more added to that. So it must be opened up. Innovative courses must be introduced, and then ways to reflect the trend of our changing society, to help people to do things that they would find opportunities, in the society. Not studying, I'm sorry to say, something like oil and gas because you want to work in an oil company. You hear that a lot. I heard that River State government, for instance, now does not even employ take your core members in any of those industries that you must go and teach. And it's funny, because people just go to read courses because they think they will find opportunities in the field. And it's not always like that. There's a gap between the opportunities and then the skill. If that gap can be bridged with proper skill and training, I think, or better still, like you said, changing the face of our practical curriculum, it's going to go a long way to help our young people.
All right, well, maybe you just give us your parting words, generally on the issue of youth employment. What would be parting words for you as we close round up?
Just like I said initially, I think foreign investment will be able to do so much, and building the skills of young people to be employable, having the skills to work in. What can you attribute to Nigeria in terms of manufacturing? Maybe that this is made in Nigeria, something you've seen overseas. I think it only takes ambition. Maybe I want Nigeria to be a hub for electronics in Africa, and you invite those foreign investors, provide an enabling environment.
We have that of about. Maybe probably we should also
we even have very, very closer ones that we're not even looking at. Then also vocational training is very, very key. Our educational curriculum is not working again. I'm telling you the gospel truth. That's why we're turning out graduates that are not employable. I think there should be so much infusion of practical vocational training, and having subsequent plans to provide these people with loans, young people with loans, so that they can be able to innovate and create businesses.
All right. Thank you so much. We are speaking with Chambers Umezulike. He is a development expert and program manager at Follow the Money. Thank you for joining us. And also McDonald Akirioma. He's a lawyer and advocate for good governance. Many thanks for coming on the show.
Thank you very much.
You've heard it all. Empower yourself. We need a sustainable plan and the political will to drive youth empowerment and also reduce to a considerable level unemployment in the country.
All right. In addition to that, like he has said, McDonald said, look for that gift. Apart from being a lawyer, he is a farmer. He's also an MC. So probably you could also think of what gifts you could add to what you are doing currently, even when you want to talk about paid employment, and that will also help in boosting revenue in the economy. My name is Aizo Jemomo. Do have yourselves a lovely weekend, and do make very good use of your weekend.
I'm Christiana Amodu. Have a lovely weekend ahead.